All right, says we're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Homestead for a Living. This is really exciting. We're starting the first of our interview series of the folks that are going to be at the festival with us, the Back to the Land Festival. And the first is our one of our local friends who lives in Hickman County, Jordan. And Gabby's got a whole list of questions. She's the house reporter, and we're going to introduce you to Jordan and the cool work that he does.
Well, first, just a quick introduction. This is Jordan Goodwin, and he is the owner of Axe and Anvil. So he does blacksmithing for a living. And so that's kind of why we invited him to the festival. And we're really excited to see his demonstration and hear him talk. But tonight we just wanted to ask him a few questions and give you guys an idea of what he's got going on and what he's going to be, sharing with us at the festival. So kind of just our first question is probably one you pretty much probably get all the time, but how did you get into blacksmithing?
Well, the very short version is, and I should back up a second and just say thank you all for the invite to the festival and all of that, and I'm looking forward to it. So I've always been a big history buff. That's basically where it all starts for me. And I got into blacksmithing because from the time I was in my mid-teens, I knew I wanted to build a log cabin, and I wanted to make all the hardware for it, door latches and hinges and things like that. And I had no idea what all was going to be involved in that, but that's what I wanted to do. So I tried blacksmithing for the first time about 10 years ago. Tried to make a latch for a door, and it was a miserable failure, and I didn't get back to blacksmithing for a couple more years. And then I had a previous business, home business, that was quite profitable as far as profit margin and everything, but it wasn't something I really enjoyed doing. And a good friend of mine got tired of listening to me whine about it. And he said, well, why don't you, I know you want to do blacksmithing, so why don't you just build a minimal shed to set your tools up in, and so you can just get started. And so I did, and the rest is history. So from there, I guess this has been about 6 years ago. Is it 6? 5 or 6 years ago now. I built this little 10-foot square 3-sided shed, and I started blacksmithing, obviously just as kind of a hobby, and then I started selling some small items on Etsy and online, and for about I guess I did that part-time for about 2 years, and or a little over. I guess it's been 3. I've been full-time for 3.5 years now. So anyway, I did it part-time for 2 years, and it got to the point where it was I was getting so much blacksmithing work that it was really competing with everything else I was trying to do. So I quit everything else and went full-time with the blacksmithing. So I've been doing it for 3.5 years now, and I really love the work. And I could be quite successful at it if I was a little more disciplined, but I am my own worst enemy.
Yeah, story of every self-employed person on planet Earth.
Well, it seems like, I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and just sometimes your captions, I am like, what is he even talking about? So it seems like, you said how when you first started blacksmithing, it was hard. You tried and you failed, and you kind of put it away for a while. So I guess, what did you do to eventually just kind of sit down and actually start learning blacksmithing and getting comfortable doing that and getting used to that learning curve? How did you get used to that learning curve, I guess, and where did you go to learn? Because it seems like you were mostly self-taught.
Yeah. and I'm convinced I'm a slow learner, so it probably isn't quite as hard for some other people. But basically, the number one ingredient for me, starting out and getting going, was just sticking to it and putting in the practice. A lot of that first 2 years, well, especially the first year, my time at the forge was very sporadic, and sometimes I'd go a couple weeks, sometimes even a couple months without doing any blacksmithing work, and I found that it was very, very hard to make any progress and skill that way, and even really, really basic operations were really hard for me. And blacksmithing, it's kind of hard to describe, but hand forging is a it's not like it's like playing music. It's like playing an instrument. Matt will sympathize with this, but literally blacksmithing is like it's not something that you can just read about and then go do.
Yeah.
And be good at. It's just like playing an instrument. Like, it just takes practice and lots of it. And it takes building muscle memory and adeptness. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but anyway, so for me, practice was really the biggest thing. I didn't have very good resources starting out. My family, when I was a teenager, like basically up until I was about 20, like, we just had dial-up internet, and I couldn't even watch a YouTube video. So I didn't have access to that. I didn't have a single decent blacksmithing book, and I had no mentors. So it was really kind of a painful journey for me in that way. It's a lot easier for folks that can actually find some in-person instruction, especially a good mentor, as with just about anything. But anyway, I'm sure most of us, some of us are more musically inclined than others, but most of us really need a good music teacher to get us down the road quicker. So
that's why I think it's
same kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so cool that you're so close to us, because I feel like finding a music mentor is probably a little easier than finding a blacksmith mentor these days. So it's nice to have a local person.
And I think we're in a time when that kind of thing is growing. People are picking up all of these trades.
Oh yeah,
falling by the wayside.
Or gaining interest.
Just like there's the back to land movement. I think that's the same thing. Is like anything related to self-sufficiency and learning to do things. And blacksmithing is such a key part of that, because there is no self-sufficiency without blacksmithing. Without the ability to work iron, we're back in the Stone Age. And from a prepper perspective, it's kind of fun because we have iron ore in this area. There's mines all throughout this part of Middle Tennessee. So it's kind of reassuring to know, like, man, we could get like a wagon and a horse and go get some rocks with iron and melt it down and like rebuild anything. It's fun.
We really live in an amazing area in that, we have those ingredients, the high quality iron ore and the hardwood for fuel to make iron and steel. It's easy to speak lightly of it when it's really a complicated and backbreaking process to do all that. But yeah, without, like you said, without the ability to work the metal, you are reduced to the Stone Age.
Well, as far as kind of what it took to build your blacksmithing business, can you kind of walk us through that journey where you started, when you felt like you were ready to sell stuff, and kind of how you went about it, and maybe just what are you doing now? Is it more, kind of common standard pieces that you're putting together? Or are you doing more, custom pieces that, clients, I guess, reach out to you and
That's like 5 or 6 questions.
I know.
Gabby.
I'm guilty of that. Start with the first one. Walk us through your journey of starting a business.
Okay, help me out. Go back to the beginning. What was the first
Okay,
question?
just the first
I'm
one.
like dealing with, as y'all can probably sympathize with. I'm dealing with like some heat exhaustion this week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm just like in a kind of a haze right now.
Exactly.
I'm about to fall asleep. That's why.
So just can you walk us through
how did the
journey?
business grow? How did I get into doing it as a business? That was it. So oh man, that's a big can of worms. But to put it simply, for me, growing a business was it really wasn't hard. Of course, for me, it was different in that I already had something going. I already had my other business, already had an income. So I wasn't starting, cold turkey from zero, trying to make a living doing something I had no idea how to do. So I was able to spend that first couple of years learning and building a business. So, and I don't necessarily recommend doing this, but I started out,
looks like we lost Jordan.
Well,
there's no way to get him back in without restarting it, right?
No, I think we can.
All right. Well, in the meantime, we'll talk about him since we can't talk with him. So Jordan, in case you missed it, is going to be at the festival and he's going to be demonstrating. And for us, even though it's kind of a very unique niche, blacksmithing, it's important because it's just showing how even a really unique niche, a very unique niche, can be turned into a living. For me, that's just like music is my living. For Gabby, she's a writer and a marketer, and she's able to bring writing into what we're doing and do a lot of that for a living. So like, there's room to take these kind of quirky things that are just a passion and really turn them into a full-time income. It's very common. A lot of people do that. And that's what we're hoping to convey here and at the festival is not only can you make a living from your land, but also from your passions and the things that you find yourself good at and wanting to pursue. So he's one of my favorite people that we've got for the festival because of that reason. And we'll have lots of people with lots of unique specialties like that. On the flip side, we have Ann of all trades coming, who is like kind of somebody who tackles everything. Yeah. And that's her career is like, I'm going to do a little bit of everything. And it shows the diversity of what you can do for a living from your homestead. Do we have any news from him?
Not yet. Just message.
That's the danger of all of us living in the country is we're always fighting against internet. We don't all have that fancy Starlink yet. Oh, TLR Inc. Good to see you in here. This is also our first time streaming while live with another person. So there's going to be a lot more of these, a lot more interviews with everyone who will be at the festival and just anyone that we think will bring an interesting perspective to the table. We had CJ Connell a while back. We did an interview of him, and he will definitely have him back. He's a really cool guy doing nomadic farming. And he's over in Oregon, and he's actually doing his farming out of the back of a truck. He has a greenhouse built on the back of a truck. It's a really cool way to farm, but also great marketing for his products too, because it's so eye-catching. People just stop him as he goes by.
He has like a phone number on there too. All right. Looks like we got him back in.
Oh, we got Jordan back. All right.
I'm so sorry about that. So I was sitting in the shade and my phone overheated.
Oh my gosh, I've had that happen. So that's how hot it is. It's in Tennessee. It is 100 degrees today, or 98 or something. I've gone through probably 5 shirts today while working. Of course, I had to build a goat house in the sun today. So and
now Matt is so quiet I can't even hear him.
Oh no.
We'll scoot in. We might.
This is really technology for you.
Yep. See, blacksmithing, this never happens.
Yeah, it's funny since the vast majority of my work is with hand tools. I can often have the power go out and not even notice.
Yeah.
Just keep working. So anyway, I've got a fan on the phone now. We'll see if that helps. I'm inside in our very minimal.
We might condense the questions. We might condense the questions a bit to make sure we get everything in. What you got, Gabe?
So back to, we were talking about how I got started, how I built a business. And what I was saying, I don't necessarily recommend, but what happened in my case was I actually started selling stuff really fast. Mm-hmm. So this same friend that encouraged me to get into blacksmithing, his purpose in encouraging me to do that was for me to build it, start it as a side hustle, and hopefully, like, you know, give me something to work my way away from what I was doing that I didn't really enjoy. Mm-hmm. And so he had an idea for some products, which in my case were just heavy hand forged hooks to hang guns on the wall. So gun hooks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I've looked around the web for these and I haven't found any that I liked. So why don't you make these? See what you can come up with. And then another, a piece of advice he gave me that was like really, really, really good, was that he told me to, you know, once I had prototypes done and I had basically had a process figured out, to charge $100 an hour shop rate. And while that might not work for everybody with every product, it really, really, it made it worth it. And it made it to where, even when I wasn't selling very many, because I had the occasional Etsy order coming in or whatever, it forced me to get out there to the shop and make stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as a busy dad, homesteader, you know, had the other business going, I probably wouldn't have really made the time to get into blacksmithing and get good at it.
It justified practice.
If I hadn't been forced to by those orders coming in. And so anyway, in my case, that really worked well. And then so from there, the Etsy store built up, got to be a decent, you know, supplemental income. And then also, I was on Instagram. So as social media, I was on Instagram and Facebook fairly early on. And so as I got into blacksmithing, I posted about my blacksmithing stuff on there. And I made some connections and made some in-person friends that started with social media, you know, relationships on social media. So I was able to network in some ways there. And it was this weird mix of, like, you know, doing the social media thing, building a following, but also like kind of using that as a gateway into word of mouth marketing. And that led to some bigger custom jobs and which stretched and expanded the horizons and the skills more. And then I guess it was about, it was late 2017. Yeah, I think it was late 2017. So I'd been blacksmithing. It was like my second year doing it as a side hustle / hobby. And I got into listening to some different business podcasts and stuff like that. And I decided to, like, really try to get serious and focus some energy on the Instagram platform. And basically, I just, even though I wasn't doing a lot, like, blacksmithing wasn't a big percentage of my time, I just started posting daily. And my goal was like three times a day, every single day. Mm-hmm. Well, 6 days a week anyway. And my account went from like 5,000 followers to 10,000 followers in 2 months. And then it doubled again in another 2 months. And anyway, grew from there. And so that became a pretty big, I guess, a pretty big, you know, ready and waiting audience to sell to. Now I've never like done a very good job of like converting the social media following directly to income. but it definitely has played a really important part in my marketing as a business. And and without the internet, I don't know how I would have built up a really profitable as in margin, not necessarily volume. That's my fault. But a profitable home business, making things and selling them all over the world. So, I'm sitting here on my homestead and I have the world as my market from my back pocket, and that's not a very good, that's not a viable business model for if and when that infrastructure falls apart. But
in that case, you probably will have less trouble than ever selling stuff.
while we're still using greenbacks, kinda. It's
I just try to get rid of them as fast as I can.
The opportunities for people to make a living at home with some kind of craft are just golden, especially if you're willing to, and I don't even like using the phrase social media, because to me it's just all the internet. But especially if you're willing to be personable with people and kind of and show what you're doing and tell your story. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but anyway.
But that's very much what Gabby teaches in her marketing classes, and what she's been talking about at our festival and other festivals is how to go about doing that. Is like, let's use social media as the force multiplier it is. Much like a tractor, it just enables us to do more than one person can do. We can reach far more people than we ever could locally. Like locally, it would be really hard to sell high-end blacksmithing products to more than a few buyers, because that's such a niche thing. But the internet just brings that, like I said, the whole world right to your homestead.
Right.
Oh, hi, Mary, by the way. Good to see you finally making it to a live.
All right.
We have an audience of one.
Oh, we got
it's
a few
going
coming
back
and
forth.
I've learned to not quite trust those audience numbers, too, because you'll have more comments.
Yeah, no. It seems to not matter what platform you're using. That's rarely accurate.
Yeah.
Well, what sort of, can you kind of describe the typical products you're working on a kind of daily, weekly basis?
Yeah. So a lot of what I kind of have two different categories. So I do some custom work, and I enjoy that. It kind of gives me some variety and some extra challenges, allows me to make new tools and learn new skills. And then I have what I call production work, and production items, custom items. Even though I do a lot of, I do custom items that aren't necessarily a one-off. It's like, well, I'm making a set of custom sized strap hinges for somebody, but I've already made lots of strap hinges before, whatever. But anyway, the production work is stuff that they're items that I have prototyped and figured out a process for, and I know exactly what's involved and how long they take and all of that. So my pricing is dialed in. Custom work is pretty often like I'm doing something that I've never quite done that exact thing before. So it's almost a prototype in and of itself. But so the types of things I'm doing, it's mostly hardware with a smattering of woodworking tools. So I make hooks and nails. Like those are some of my, and these are just small items. Those are some of my bread and butter items. Just make lots and lots of hooks and nails. And these are hooks to hang pots in the kitchen or guns on the wall or whatever, coats. The nails get bought by people to either hang hardware with, or just to drive in the wall to hang something on, or they get used sometimes in furniture, woodworkers that are building something. And then some of the bigger pieces would be like strap hinges, door latches, occasionally something bigger like a chandelier. So it's mostly hardware and tools. The tools are mostly like historical hand tools, mostly woodworking tools. So froze, and I've made a couple of hatchets here and there, And yeah, so hardware and tools for now.
Interesting.
And that's interesting because there's like so many businesses where that same thing would probably apply, where you have your products you make on a traditional basis, and then you have your custom orders. I've been kind of finding that out with water barrels, with design, with everything. There's like those projects that are cut and paste, and then the ones that are more customized, a little bit harder to price and everything.
Yeah. And what I haven't been super successful with it so far, but like, again, that just comes back to the discipline of putting the hours in. But what I've been trying to do, basically the business model I've been striving for is to like build the business where it can run on just the production work, where the production work makes my money, makes my salary, makes my income, whatever. Salary's kind of not even a word for entrepreneurs, right? But anyway, where that makes my living, the production work makes my living, so I know exactly, how much of that I need to do, what's involved, what my overhead is, or whatever. And what I'm trying to get to is to where basically I'm doing that, say 2 to 3 days out of the week. And I have it all penciled out, basically from I pencil it out backwards. So, set a goal for, okay, I need to make this much money a month. And in order to do that, I need to do this much work. Or I need to make this much money a month, and I only want to do it in maximum 3 days a week. So here's how much I need to make a day. And then break the work down from there. And that wasn't really part of the question, but that everybody's always curious about pricing, and that's kind of one of the ways I work my pricing out, and that gives me time margin. I really want to get that to 2 days a week. That gives me time margin to do other homesteading things, which my homestead is not near what I want it to be, but anyway, homesteading things, dad things, my projects. Our house is still not finished. This is our 10th year in it. So anyway, lots of other things to do.
Awesome.
And then there's like right now, there's the occasional custom job that you just lose your rear on because it takes so much longer than you thought it would. And
I found that with design projects a lot of times.
You get behind.
Yeah.
I know you found that with marketing clients where it's just turns into 10 times the workload. But like when you're a craftsman, or that's your mentality, and you have a work ethic, you still have to do the same job you would. And it's just agonizing because you're just like every second it's just like, I'm losing money on this. But it's a good discipline to just get through it. And,
yeah, and it's a practice and confidence too,
But it makes you better at quoting really quickly.
Yes. You don't have to do too many of those projects to learn that lesson. Well, we're coming up on 30 minutes here, so I figure kind of just a final question here. For those people who are interested in picking up blacksmithing and just want to, test a project, what would be a project you would recommend people start with, and what are the tools you think every beginner blacksmither would need to jump in?
Well, that's probably the biggest can of worms yet.
Oh gosh.
The good thing is there's tons of resources out there via the internet. There's YouTube, there's books you can buy, there's courses you can buy, there's lots and lots of stuff. The bad thing is there's so much stuff to wade through, and we are blacksmithing, at least in its traditional forms, is it's a craft that's as old as man, and but yet the chain of knowledge that was craftsman teaching craftsman has been broken in the last 100 years. So 100 years ago, blacksmiths were still doing their thing, but we went through a period in the 20th century where blacksmiths came close to basically dying out. in Western society, or at least in America. And so even most blacksmiths, hobbyists and whatnot, and people like me, even full-time guys that that are doing it now, we don't have that connection necessarily to the past. So it's that's way too deep into the can of worms. But basically what I'm getting at is it can be hard to like wade through all the information that's out there and like find the really, really useful stuff. But I recommend to everybody, and this is not like the greatest endorsement ever, but basically for the lack of a better resource, I recommend to everybody grab a book called A Blacksmithing Primer by Randy McDaniel. Read through the book, do everything he says, do all the it's basically a textbook for beginner blacksmiths. And of course you can watch YouTube and all of that, but everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt. And really the absolute best thing for anyone to do who's starting out in blacksmithing is to like chase down a couple of mentors and visit as many like old salt blacksmiths as you can find via the internet. And find the blacksmithing clubs. Most states have actually like blacksmithing groups or clubs with regular meetings, and sometimes there's even conferences. And there's this whole like micro culture, kind of like homesteading, but there's this whole micro culture of modern blacksmithing that's really invisible to the public. Even when you get into YouTube and stuff like that, it's not something you'll really understand is there until you actually find the clubs and all like that, chase that down. But the main things for me that I tell everybody is you've got to get started. You got to do it. It's just like, again, back to playing an instrument. If you want to play guitar, you can't just watch videos and live vicariously through other people's experiences. You have to pick it up, and even if it's a cheap one, and start and plink on it every single day. And so that's really what needs to be done is, get some basic tools and get started. As far as basic tools, I'm really kind of hardcore traditionalist, old school when it comes to blacksmithing. So I lean towards a simple solid fuel, coal or charcoal forge. But it's not very complicated. It's pretty easy to build a forge, and you need a decent hammer you can swing and a heavy chunk of metal to use as an anvil. So it's really not that complicated. But yeah, like I said, there's lots of good information out there, and I hope someday in the not too distant future to be able to like actually to help create some resources for people, because I'm just not satisfied with what's out there. I'm not satisfied with this answer. I don't have like one easy resource that I'm comfortable pointing people towards.
Yeah.
And
that is
it really
an opportunity.
It really is overwhelming to wade through everything that's out there. So
yeah, I would say everyone, if they want to start, the first thing they do is follow Axe and Anvil, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Like and subscribe.
And actually, what are the best channels for them to follow you on?
So I have a website, Axe and Anvil Handworks. There's a newsletter you can sign up for. I need to get back to putting those out. But yeah, Instagram is where I post the most. There's also a YouTube channel, and everything's just under that same label of Axe and Anvil Handworks. So awesome. I'm pretty easy to find.
Cool.
There's a Facebook page for those people that are not on Instagram. So
some of us still like Facebook better than Instagram. Some of us hate it all, but we're still on it.
Yep.
Facebook's only redeeming qualities, pages and groups.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to remember, social media is like a gun. It's just a tool that can be used for, good or evil, but like, boy, is it a force multiplier, and it can really help the business get launched. And like you were talking about from kind of a prepper perspective, like, well, what's going to happen if I lose access to the internet? But like, at the same time, all of these trades that we're becoming experts in will suddenly be invaluable in that kind of situation. Same with homesteading and homestead design. So I've learned to be less leery of using the internet. You know, it's here, it's around, it's defining how the world works. And, you know, for us personally, like, we use it with an understanding of how detrimental it can be and how it's responsible for a lot of the societal ills. But like, it's a tool that's there, and it's kind of unavoidable in a way to do business. And possibly it's a transitory thing, you know, where we can build the kind of wealth in the trades where, never mind if everything went wrong someday, if everything chugged along like normal, quote unquote, we could just still build our businesses to the point where we could step back and say, okay, I've got a word of mouth base now, and people know to come to me. Or like, all right, I've got that roadside frontage for my farm stand now, is it will get that piece of real estate. Not going to worry about the online marketing anymore. So I think it's not shying away from it too much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right there with you.
Well, awesome. So like we said, Jordan will be there at the festival, bringing the whole. We're gonna see how much of his workshop we can get him to bring with him. But
way too much.
I'll help unload. But yeah, it's gonna be awesome, and everybody can meet him in person. And if you want to dip your foot in the water, like, this is something that's nowhere near on my horizon, but 2 years from now, I'm probably gonna start thinking like, man, I really
Well, you need to start thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my hands. I know we're like trying to wrap up here, but I have this little booklet that I found that was it was actually sort of kind of like info marketing material, but it was put out by the Atkins Saw Company and published in 1931 or 1930. And it's called The Farm Workshop. And it's really interesting because it's early enough that it's really heavy on the hand tools. And it even shows, like, you know, it even shows you like lists and optional floor plans and stuff like that for hand tool shops. But then it also shows some power tools and some bigger shop floor plans that include bigger power equipment and stuff like that. But anyway, what I'm getting at is blacksmithing is included in that farm workshop. And
like every large farm might just consider having that capability. Every
small farm, as far as I'm concerned.
That's awesome.
You know, and this is something we'll get into at the conference, but I really, really do think, I mean, it does depend a lot on like your style of working, but especially if you want to rely less and less on parts and components from the outside world. If that's your mindset, then I think a home blacksmithing setup is pretty much essential equipment for a homesteader, you know, especially if you live in the country.
And I just love the idea of like, oh, I need a hinge for this chicken coop. I'll just go pound one out this afternoon.
Like, oh, let me go to Lowe's.
Yeah. And even if you don't ever get to the level of skill where you can just like really crank out all kinds of beautiful, you know, work really fast. Man, I've learned that just having the ability to heat and shape larger pieces of metal, you know, bigger than you can do with a torch. It's extremely handy. So yeah. Anyway, I'll bring that little booklet with me to the conference. And it's a big inspiration for me with what I really want to put out some modern booklets, literature that, you know, are similar in their goal and scope. But yeah. Every homesteader should have a blacksmithing setup.
Well, now we're going to pester you for all these resources, and we'll definitely be
Bring it on.
That's exciting. Well, anything else before we wrap up here?
I think that's about it. I look forward to seeing everybody at the festival. It's gonna be good.
As always, put all the links in the video here as soon as we get off to the festival and the tickets and everything. And looking forward to powwowing in person and learning a lot from you.
Absolutely. All righty, y'all take care. Have a good evening.
You too. Everybody else, see y'all at the next one.